Delhi, and today I'm going to be interviewing the first ever South Asian to play for Arsenal in England. A bit about Women in Sport India before we start. So, Women in Sport India, WISI for short, is an organization that allows networking opportunities, employment opportunities, and mentoring for women in sport across India. So, here we have with us Aman Dosanj. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah. So, how did it all begin? You were in football. How did you get into football in the first place?
So I'm one of three. So I'm the middle child. My brother is the oldest. He always wanted another sibling to play with, and he always deep down inside wanted a brother, but instead he got me. And so he just used to take me outside and just put me in goal and just shoot at me. And after a while, I got pretty okay at it. And unfortunately, my sister was the youngest, so when she came along, we put her as the goalpost. And so we would just always grow up in England, and we were just outside every day, every chance we got. We were just running around and either climbing an apple tree or playing cricket on one side. So my mum was not very impressed with the fact that she has all this amazing like flowers and plants and everything. But then on one side of the garden, there was a bare patch of grass where we used to play football, and the other side, cricket stumps. And so you just never had any patches of grass on either of those spots as well. So yeah, we started over there, and then I've started when I was about 6 years old for my school team. And from there, my mom happened to be a beautician. So she went to night school, and then she ended up having like a home business that she converted her little shed on the side of our road, inside of our house, sorry, into a beauty salon. And one day she just happened to have somebody from Red Star Southampton come over. And Red Star Southampton used to eventually got affiliated with Southampton Football Club. And so she starts having a conversation with this woman, and she was like, "Oh, I play football." And then my mum's like, "Well, my daughter plays football, but she plays with the boys in school, and she might not be able to play anymore." And then she was just like, "Well, we have like an under 10s team that we're just about to launch. Why don't she come over?" And so that's kind of how it started. Yes, so 25 years ago, but my journey kind of started a little bit before my actual like getting signed and stuff. So just because I ended up getting, I think, somehow in touch with the Arsenal setup, obviously being a lifelong Arsenal fan. And I think my dad sent a letter to the Arsenal like football club asking if there's any like goalkeeper coaching or anything in the summertime, because a lot of the clubs at that time would have specific, summer schools that you would go to, and then you get to meet a player at the end of it and stuff like that. But I was in the England setup at the time. I hadn't played yet, but we were doing training camp since the age of 14. And so they invited me over to train with the Arsenal women.
Okay, that's so cool. You started playing at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was learning the language of football from a very young age, and like in terms of my pathways to the game, it was relatively straightforward because I had a brother and he was playing, and so I was learning from him because he was like 4 years older than me. But then playing for a for a team, and especially a team like Southampton, where we had a mentor system. So even though we were the under 10s, my first goalkeeper coach was Sue Bucket. And for anyone that doesn't know, Sue Bucket holds a legacy cap #1 for the Lionesses. So after the 50-year ban that the English Football Association imposed, she was in the first England squad, the official England squad, to play as England against Scotland. And so it was a generation that just wanted to give back and give us the opportunities that they never had. And so at the time, my mom was very supportive, especially for a brown mom, and community and all the things that you're not supposed to do as a little brown kid, especially a brown girl. But then she would always take me. Had no interest in football, just used to drop me off, and then I used to walk over to the pitch and then come on back after training was done. And she noticed, like, she was really cool because she noticed that I didn't have a parent on the sideline. And she specifically asked to speak to my mom afterwards. So obviously my mind goes to what have I done? And I'm in trouble. But it's because of her advocating for me and saying to my mom with the right training and encouragement, I think she could play for England.
Whoa.
That was a really yeah, as a 10-year-old. And I always kind of felt like a bit of a fraud because back in the day, Pizza Hut used to have a kids' meal, and at some stage, they gave like little coaching cards. And one of the coaching cards that I happened to get in my kids' meal was about Seaman, and he's always been such an icon and a role model to me. And it was like learning the W shape, like catching the ball with the W, so your thumbs are behind the ball. So I was just book smart. And so she thought I was like some sort of little prodigy, and
Mhm.
but I was just like every Indian stereotype really when it comes to things, and I've just studied and practiced and stuff like that. Yeah, like it's not just I learned later that it wasn't just the Pizza Hut coaching card that kind of got me there, but yeah, that was a real big like game changer for me and as a family, because like having someone that has done it to see potential in you was really big. And that dream suddenly became a reality. Like I grew up with an England shirt on every opportunity I got. I cried every time the men's team were playing and we lost. And all I ever wanted to do was play for England. And so it became this kind of almost this tangible thing because someone else saw it in me. And then that was really important for my parents to know that, okay, well, we should encourage this then. And then they showed up to every single one of my games. My mom would even come to like school games, and the
Oh.
school games weren't even very good. And so, but she would come, and she's like a busy mom taking care of three kids, juggling like feeding us a home cooked meal like every day and stuff like that. And so it was just like very much made it. I'm very appreciative of my parents for everything that they've done, and that just continued on and on and on all throughout.
So nice that your parents supported you all the way. So,
Arsenal women. And so as a school kid, I was literally traveling with my mum to pick me up from school, take me home. Then there will be an hour and a half train journey to from Southampton to London Waterloo. From there, it was a half an hour tube ride up to North London to Highbury at the time, and then a 10-minute walk to the stadium. And then you start running around the track and then into the ball court, and then we'd get home about midnight.
oh,
And then you got school on the next day. So that was kind of happening before the Arsenal thing had even started. So I was invited, and then all of a sudden I was playing alongside like Marion Spacey and Rachel
oh.
Yankee, and Rachel has always been such a big role model for me. She nutmegged me on the very first time that we entered the ball court, and I was just like so in awe of her silky skills. I wasn't even mad about it.
Another quote that I'm recalling, the
Mhm.
way you described your journey after school to the training ground, right? So our grandparents tell us that okay, I used to pass through mountains and lakes, and then I would go to school. Your journey sounded like that.
Yeah.
So in Hindi we say, no, pahad
Well,
paar
I wouldn't
karke.
I wouldn't say I would give your grandparents a lot more credit than me going in my privileged ways. It's like I was very lucky. Like I think in the first season alone, my parents drove about 70,000 miles in one season. And that's going up and down and juggling A levels. It was a lot of commitment. And then there was like training outside of the Arsenal setup as well. And so it was definitely a lot of stuff. The game at that time wasn't like profitable at all. There was no money in the game, and so we were
Right,
just doing it purely for the love of it.
right.
And like I was never going to say no to playing for Arsenal. So you just make it work and make sure. And so after that, like when it became me going to Ireland to make my England debut, Arsenal happened to be coming down south to play in the Premier League against Southampton. And
Whoa.
Vic Akers at the time was the Arsenal kitman, but also the Arsenal women's manager. And
Right.
so he knew that I was a lifelong Gooner. And he also had it in his mind that he wanted to sign me. So he just like gave us the hotel that we can go to in Southampton. And I was taken by my parents. And like on the coach ride there, Vic had told David Seaman all about me. And so he spent a good 10 minutes talking to me, giving me some advice. And like he signed my glove. I got a
Oh,
photo with him and everything. So that was kind of how I went into making my Arsenal debut, which is really amazing.
that's an
And
amazing
so
story.
that kind of, yeah, so then
Right. So I was coming to the point that I didn't know about you until last week. Yeah, like nobody told me. So I am very active on Twitter, on every social media, and I talk about Arsenal all the time, Arsenal and Arsenal women as well. But nobody told me there was a South Asian playing for Arsenal when I was not even born. I was not even born. Why was it hidden from me all this time? It's. I mean, I'm glad
you
I got to
age
know
me
it,
like
got to
substantial.
know that now, but it should have been out
You're
there.
not alone. It's something that obviously I did my part, right? I played
Yeah, you did your
I
part.
just don't think there was enough awareness. There's a lot of people who knew about it, but they didn't keep it alive and they didn't keep conversations going. And maybe they felt like a South Asian that played for the Lionesses at under 16 level wasn't as substantial as it is to the community that I now know that like every time you speak to somebody from the community, they get so sparkly eyed and they're just full of hope because I think in the English game, especially, and that's the only thing that I can really speak to like personally is the English game because I am English, but we try and strive for all of these milestones that have already been done, right? And so I hear a lot from South Asian women, especially being like, if only we knew about your story, we could have maybe, you get to a certain age and it's just like you're allowed to play, and then you hit like 14 or something, and then you're like, it's taken away from so many people, right? At the age of 14, I was in an England setup. At the age of 15, I was playing for Arsenal. At the age of 16, I was making, my debuts in the FA Cup. And so I think these stories would help so many generations if they knew
Right,
that it was actually possible. And
right,
I think for me, it would have been really nice to have that community support in the stands, right? To know that you've got,
right.
like I said before, is just like have that hype person by your corner, but to have the community that also in the past when we were playing, like not everyone in my extended family understood why my parents were letting me play, right? And so you go to a wedding, there's all this video evidence, and they can see me from a certain point during the theater, and then all of a sudden, my dad, and I disappear. You only see us again at the party at the end, right? And it's my mum that had to bear the brunt of everyone's like comments when
Right.
it came to that. And so they weren't even in our own extended family. There wasn't, I didn't get laddu. I didn't get my little stuff that I think the community should have also, paid attention to, because I think it would have been very different if I was a boy. And I
Mm.
think those are things that we need to learn from, right? And make sure that whoever does come next, that we do celebrate them. And my story is all well and good, and it's up to so many people, and now yourself included, to keep that going, just to show that that then became newsworthy. And so 2 weeks after Bender Like Beckham came out and was released in the UK, the Telegraph ran a story with the headline, "She bends like Beckham and says it like Seaman,"
Whoa.
which is very flattering to me.
It is, yeah.
um,
By the way,
and
yeah.
so then it just made it, there was just it made it viable for people to know that, okay, this storyline isn't so out of the box and just a dream. That's
Right.
people, and not just me, there's like brown borders across the world that it resonated with. And the film was beautifully done in terms of just showing people that women can play, and it became this global anthem of just, empowerment for women. And even though the level of football really wasn't very good in the film, and especially when it comes to the goalkeeper positioning in the free kick scene, which still bugs me today as a goalkeeper, because why are you going to stand behind a wall? You're supposed to stand on the side of the wall.
Right.
But little things like that really matter. But it was just important that we knew that it was happening and that it could be done. And I think that would have been a very powerful message for kids to grow up with,
Right.
knowing that I was never planning on doing a dissertation that was in sports, but I had too many business credits, so they had to do it. So my dissertation was on like the underrepresentation of South Asians in English football. And
Whoa.
then to then have be the first, after I graduated, the first intern at Nike's UK London office by just management. I did a graduate marketing scheme, which was a fast track management program with Sky. I worked on FIFA 10 with EA Sports, and so everything was sports related. And then all of a sudden, the universe had other plans for me, and my dad unfortunately got sick, and we ended up moving to a country we hadn't been to before. So we moved to Canada, and food the level of education, it just got a bit more intense, and it was just
Right.
harder to keep up. And so that's when I went down in terms of training with Arsenal. And so it was just down to once a week. But then
So I have this theory that Bended Like Beckham is based on you, right? So how? So basically, I read that you played for England in April 1999, and the movie came out a few weeks later. And then you mentioned, wait, you
no, the
mentioned
movie came out a few years later.
a few years later that it's
Yeah, it
totally
came
based
out.
on you. Okay.
Well, I would like to squash that theory and say, apparently Gurinder Chadda didn't know about me. The person who it was loosely based on, who was consulting at the time, was Permi Juti. So Permi was playing for Chelsea at the time, and Chelsea weren't in the Premier League at that time. I think they must have been in like the Championship equivalent back then. But then she was the first South Asian in 2000 to become pro. So she signed a contract. That's when like Fulham Football Club started to kind of recruit everyone. Rachel Yankee. I think there's multiple people who said that one of the most iconic South Asian athletes in sport is a fictitious character in terms of Jess. And so yeah, I get told a lot that, oh, we could have had you and stuff like that. But not everything is meant to be. Not everyone gets to have that,
Right.
that happily ever after all. But yeah, no, it wasn't apparently anything to do with my story, even
Yeah.
though I had played. And like films take ages to write and develop and pitch and get sent no to and stuff like that. And so it's just something that happened to just tie up. But it was kind of, so there's lots of stuff that can be done and needs to be done in order for the floodgates to open. But we're still having the same old conversations, and there's so many people who don't even think that South Asians play football. And it's the crowds that the Indian men's league, that Indian women's team and the national team pulls in, is something that we shouldn't underestimate. Like, to have the
Right.
most populous country and you don't think that there's going to be another like Bon Mati or Lauren James. And like, I think it's a missed opportunity if we don't start looking out east for talent, them at a young enough age when they can start learning the language of football, and the language of football wherever it be, in terms of like whether it's the WSL and England or the States or wherever. I think that's really important, is just to get into the system and start learning the language of football, because you can be as talented as you want, but that's only going to get you a certain way. And hard work, it is a lot of hard work, and I know it's difficult. It's still difficult to convince parents
Right.
that this is kind of a right move. But I think it's also, I read somewhere that most adults will go through about five career changes, and I'm already on like six. Everything's kind of interconnected in a way, but you can also come back to your education. Like
Yeah.
you can also get a degree, whereas the window of being an athlete is so slim in the
Right.
grand scheme of things, right? And especially when
Right.
it's we're talking and having a conversation about a brown girl in sport. And so, there's lots of things. I think I would love to see more and more parents just embrace it. Like, my grandma was an Arsenal fan. Like she knew
Oh,
she was an Arsenal fan, and she knew when David Seaman was wearing an England shirt or an Arsenal shirt.
hmm.
She used to call him Joella,
Moose
and
wala?
because he had a much.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
those are kind of the memories that people don't necessarily associate. Like she knew when we scored, she knew when the opposition scored. She was sad when we were sad.
That's so sweet.
And so it was just really nice to have those memories of like my grandma. And it was just like, yeah, like it's stuff like that you just like reflect on and just can't help but kind of smile
Right.
about. And she was just so excited when I met David Seaman. I was able to show her the pictures and stuff like that. So even though we didn't have as much support as we hoped for in terms of the wider community and in terms of like our extended family. It's just it didn't really matter
Right.
to my parents. It didn't really mattered to me, and like I think the validation of having my grandma. And so I took my mum to the Arsenal City game, and I was like, Mom, like, remember when we used to play and it was just our family and friends in the crowd, and now there's people with chants and
Wow.
they're coming out week in, week out, and even sometimes the Arsenal away support is bigger than the support for the home team, and they broke records of 60,000 at the
Right,
Emirates.
right, right.
It's really incredible just to have a really, really small, tiny little stake in it and just
Right.
say that, we made a little bit of history just by kicking around a ball.
Right, you did. By the way, I came across this photo of you and Parminder Nagra from, I
Yes.
think, yes.
The Telegraph article came out. Then all of a sudden, I'm asked to launch the World Cup stamps with
Oh,
her. And she happens to be the same height as me, which is like, and we're both Punjabi. And, it was just like a lot of weird stuff. Like she's obviously a lot older than me and things. Um, but then that was kind of another layer of the connection to the movie, and so yeah, like all of that happened, and then I ended up getting honored by the BBC Mega Mela Awards, it's that one up there.
really?
And it was a Young Achiever Award in 2002. And in my
Oh,
acceptance speech, I did a big up to the Bendit Like Beckham casting crew for showing that South Asians can play football and that girls should be playing football and can and do. And after that, Nina Wadia, who was one of the hosts and who made a cameo as the event planner in
right.
Bender Liebeck, came over to me and she actually, I was like, do you think, and she was so proud, and she came up to me and just to say congratulations and you did this, and it was just like as a celebrity to come to a little kid was really lovely. And then I was like, does this mean that I can get into the VIP party? And then she went into her trailer and got me a like golden wristband, and then I got in and I was partying with like Archie Punjabi,
Whoa.
who again came over to me, and the same kind of conversation, and we have a picture together as well. And it was just like it was nice because I was almost like this unofficial cast member who had
Right,
zero airtime that was just embraced by it because they were like, well, this is like we're part of something. And I
right,
think it was the first time that it was a very South Asian story, but it's very British Indian story as well. But it resonated with so many people that
right.
people with power don't normally understand. And it still remains one of the highest.
Yeah. So, what lessons did football teach you that you still apply to your life?
I think football has provided me with so many different kind of teachings along the way that some of them I didn't even realize that were there as well, and how important it was to my life. And um, I think obviously team working and just growing up in a situation where you don't have to carry the load yourself. And I think that one's a really big one, especially when I moved over to Canada and it,
Right,
starting from scratch and in an industry that I hadn't been in before and figuring that out, plus being a small business owner and sole proprietor, and it's just everything falls on your shoulders. And I think that's the thing that I miss the most, is being part of a team and knowing that you don't have to go through everything on your own, and there are people who has your back and stuff like that. All through those years we didn't really have a conversation about one, like strength and conditioning, and we're seeing a huge rise in terms of ACL injuries with
right,
knee injuries. And then secondly, we don't really talk about the mental aspect of things and
right,
how important it is to have like a healthy mind, body, and spirit. And so I think those little things that we can be really, take from our culture and be proud of it and make our practices really important, because like yoga gives us so much in terms of, flexibility, in terms of strength and core
right.
training. And I'm not a bendy person, and I've always been that kid that was just like really, really, I just was tightly put together, I think. And I think those are some of the things that I think sport has given. And it's always great to be passionate about something and
Right, it
just
is.
something that you just love doing. I think, as long as you love doing it, there's no point unless it's fun.
Yeah,
And just kick a ball around. And I was just recently in Mumbai last October, and I kicked a
okay.
ball around for the first time. And it was in England that I kicked a ball around in the first time for like 18 years or whatever. It was in Mumbai with FC Young Guns, and they have
Okay.
an incredible little system of, it made you like remember what it's like to be part of a team, and just like it was just the warm, and everyone was so nice and people genuinely cared, and those kind of things are super lovely to have, and just a community of people that you can just talk to.
Right.
um and so yeah, those are some of my things that football has taught me.
So the progress is going on. Like the men's teams are getting the women's teams.
Like, it's great that they're now playing in the men's stadiums. I think that's
Right.
step. Whether they can fill those, I think Arsenal are just paving the way in terms of the work that the Arsenal Women's
Yeah.
Supporters Club have done.
Yeah.
They support international when they're playing Champions League. They have people that go out to every single game.
Right.
Um,
Going back in time, will you have any advice for young Aman back then? Okay, maybe when you started playing, let's say when you were 10, do you have some advice for her, young Aman?
when I was 10, like the advice I would give myself now is go back to that little feisty 10-year-old, right? Like that wasn't scared, that was just like the boys. If I'm playing with the boys and I'm better than them, so why shouldn't I? Kind of mindset. I think the advice I would give myself as a 15-year-old, especially, I played so well when it came to my England debut. It was like dream, 2 clean sheets. I played against Ireland and then Wales, and the game against Ireland, I was player of the match and I came on at half time. And I think one of the reasons why I played so well is that I had an assistant coach who came to find me the day before the game. And she took me out one of the hotel rooms and we sat on the stairs, and she explained to me that you're going to be making your debut tomorrow, and this is what it means, and we've got your back, and we believe in you. And it was just a really nice thing for someone to do. And I'm someone who likes a lot of communications, especially now that I know that I've got ADHD and stuff. And so it was just like going into it really well, and especially when you've had like David Seaman champion you, and then you had
Right.
this, and then I got player of the match that game. So I would go back to that, because like unfortunately for the next tournament at Wembley, I didn't get selected, even though I couldn't physically have done any more.
Right.
There wasn't really communication as to why. And it just kind of felt like nothing I did was good enough. And my head just dropped, and it like that was like I played really well in Arsenal in Ireland, and then this happened, and then so when I got selected and when I was playing for the Arsenal first team, I was like, why am I here? If England under 16 doesn't want me,
Mm.
like why am I here? And I got in my own head where I just needed to just take a chill pill and just like be like, you've got it. And I guess like we grow up in a culture where it's just like you should be humble and you should be, all these kind of things and downplay it. And I've always been that person, but I
Right.
think at some point you do need to have a little bit of an ego
Yeah.
when you're at that stage
Right.
and be like, you're good. Just own it. Just
Yeah.
own
Right.
it, like enjoy it, have fun. So that's the kind of advice that I would give myself is just like be fearless, not even
Right.
I believed I was, and trying to question it when Vic Akers at the time had two very different centre backs. He had Faye White, who was like literally like a giant, and
Right.
then next to her was Vicky Exley, and Vicky was probably smaller than me,
Mm-hmm.
which is not very common when you look at centre backs. But
Right.
it was a team where he could see my potential and I was springy. And I found a little article clipping, and it was like me about 15, and I was like, oh, people say things about my height, but it doesn't matter when I'm like springy and I have big hands, is what I said. And it was just like channel that energy, kid. Channel that energy and that you belong to be there, even though there weren't. I don't think I didn't play against a single other South Asian during my time. And um, sometimes it would just be nice if the players that I had grown up with and that I had played with, even if they didn't remember my name, just acknowledge that they played with someone who was South Asian, because I
Right.
think that could just, that acknowledgement and that accountability that, yeah, there was a kid. Don't remember her name, but she played for England. She played with me in England, or she played with me at Arsenal, or played with me at Southampton. And I think it just opens up a conversation that we're
Right.
usually excluded from. And I think that's kind of something that we do need to kind of do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to building my connection when it comes to India and football, and just hopefully if more and more women get to know, then they can name drop when it comes to conversation with their parents, and
Right.
they can, carry on playing because,
Right.
Aman has told them so.
Right.
So hopefully we'll see more and more growth in the game, and it's already growing. It's just to give it the respect it requires, and India is not just cricket, and it's not just about men's
Right.
football.
Right. All right. Who's your favorite Arsenal woman player right now? Okay, first let's talk about the past players and then you name the current player. Who's your
My
favorite?
favorite, yeah, my favorite Arsenal women's player has always been Rachel Yankee.
Okay.
Even as a kid, I was dressed head and toe in my brother's hand-me-down Arsenal kit,
Mm-hmm.
and I was playing for Southampton. I was
Right.
watching the Southampton women play against Arsenal, but
Mm.
dressed head to toe in my Arsenal kit. And so I've got a picture with Marion Spacey as a kid. And so I played with her. But Rachel Yankee, I think
Rachel
Rachel was
Yankee.
just such a silky player that reminds me of a bit like Lauren James now.
Oh, right.
And in terms of the current squad, that's a tricky one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the current squad, Caldente, obviously, like she is again, her feet is just magical. They're just magical.
Right.
Um, mm,
Um, do you miss Midema, by the way?
I
She's so
do.
good.
I
Oh my
love
God.
it. Like
It,
I
yeah,
team.
we can't not love her. It was so nice seeing the score lines like 13-0. And you'd be wondering, are we playing hockey? Are we playing basketball? Why is there a 13-0 score line? Remember? It was nice.
Yeah, like Mima was a very intelligent player,
Right.
and Like she's not a typical, like she's not a nine and she's kind of not a 10. Like she's just her own unique self. She can play in
Right,
so many positions and keep people guessing about what she's going to be doing next. And she's a finisher. Like
right,
she's finishing at City and I'm hopeful. Like, I'm just glad that she's getting the recognition she deserves and the respect she deserves at City
right.
and yeah.
Right,
Research into it because there hasn't typically and historically been very much
right,
looking into the women's side of things and why we have these problems.
yep,
And you're looking at the men, but you're not looking at things like the menstrual
right,
cycle and how impact it does have on
right.
things. And it's like it's really important that all parts of the game, especially the parts that don't
So,
coincide with the
yeah,
men's
yeah,
game,
yeah.
the men's get
Right,
some airtime.
right. So women have always been considered smaller versions of men, but that is so not true. There's so many things different about us. Like now they're bringing different boots for women also, which will like stabilize the ankle. And then there are more improvements. Like there was this theory that maybe we should reduce the goalpost size. I think I heard Emma Hayes talk about this, but then she was disagreeing with this. Yeah, you as a goalkeeper, what do you have to
Yeah,
say about that? Reducing
well,
the
obviously I'm a small goalkeeper, but I still manage to work on the same rules as everyone else. I think if we
right,
want to finally, like, eventually get to the equal pay for equal
right,
work
right,
and like all the US national team has done, then we need to look at other things. I think there's so many other aspects of the game that we need to look at and sort out
right,
first, especially when it comes to the UK being one of the most ethnically diverse countries
right,
around, and yet our national team looks nothing like the makeup
right.
of so
By the
lots of
way,
ways
I am
to-
Punjabi too, but I cannot speak Punjabi. I can just understand. So, what languages can you speak? You speak Hindi as well, do you?
No, my mum, like I can understand
You can
Hindi. My
understand. आपको
mom
समझ आती है?
हाँ हाँ, आती
Okay.
है
Cute.
like in terms of my Punjabi, like very totta futta Punjabi and so but yeah, I can understand everything and I speak a little bit. So but my mom is mainly like she's fluent in Punjabi and Hindi, and she can read and write Hindi because she went to school in Delhi. So
Right.
um, and then Tony Adams was actually in my sports sciences class. So
Whoa.
that's another art connection.
Wow.
And so
We really
uh,
do find Arsenal everywhere, don't we? So one
it's
Yeah, it's
weird.
just natural. It's very weird. So on yesterdays, I'm an undergraduate, so UG. I was in the postgraduate hostel last night. I just went to meet a senior, and then I see an Arsenal towel hung outside on the stand. I was like, "Oh my God, what did I just see?" And I pinched myself. Then I asked my senior, "Oh my God, whose is this?" I still haven't found out whose it is. I am gonna go there actually. I'll ask.
Yeah,
I
no,
have
because
to.
Arsenal's the only club, to my knowledge, to have the first South Asian woman playing for their first team, and the first South Asian man to play for them was Jimmy Carter. And he is someone who chose for some reason not to disclose his identity, and I believe he's maybe biracial, but I
Mhm.
think his dad was India from somewhere. And so it was just like a really unique opportunity to actually tell
Right,
these stories and connect with a fan base that sometimes is often neglected. And so I think it's kind of cool to have both a man and woman
right,
uh, in the same club, which hasn't happened to my knowledge in any other club. So,
right. Mom, good luck to you. Good luck to your ventures in sport and outside. I wish
you,
you all the best. And then
thank you.
we'll stay connected. So,
Yeah, you know how you got my details, and so
yep.
that's how you get in touch with me.
All right.